Imagine, imagine surviving a devastating continent-wide plague,
Right.
like just barely making it through, and then mourning 4 dead husbands before your 26th birthday.
Which is just, I mean, that's incredibly young to have lost so much.
Oh, absolutely. Just watching the men in your life drop one by one to war, to disease, to just absurd accidents.
Yeah.
Now, imagine you were a young woman trying to save your ancestral home from all these violent, ambitious lords just circling you like vultures.
Like they do.
Exactly. And then you realize, in this flash of terrifying clarity, that your absolute best chance at survival is to convince the entire world that you are a demonic, blood-drinking witch.
It is, it's just the ultimate paradox of survival in a hostile world.
Yeah,
And the source material we are pulling from today, it really forces us to confront that paradox head on.
it really does.
We are looking at excerpts from these suppressed, hidden lore records, documents detailing the brutal ground-level realities of the year 211 AC.
The dark stuff.
Exactly. We are acting as lore keepers today, stepping into the restricted stacks of history to analyze a narrative that the maesters of the era, well, they actively tried to obscure it.
Right, because history is written by the victors and usually by the men.
Oh, entirely. They coded the truth of this era in prejudice, paranoia, and just a massive dose of institutional misogyny.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we have a very specific mission for you today, listening at home.
We do.
We are going to uncover the brutal, brilliant truth behind one of the most feared and honestly misunderstood historical figures in all of Westerosi lore.
Lady Rohanne Webber.
Yes, Lady Rohanne Webber, known to the terrified masses as the Black Widow of Coldmoat.
Or simply the Red Widow.
The Red Widow, I mean, what a title. But this isn't a fable, right? This is a real terrifying history of political survival.
And an ancient blood feud.
Yes, an ancient feud and a political chess game so utterly ruthless it just demands a full dissection.
It really does. And to truly understand the Red Widow, we have to understand the nightmare she was living in.
The context is everything here.
Exactly. Because the year 211 AC is not a time of chivalric romance. Westeros is bleeding.
Just absolutely devastated.
Yeah, the realm has just barely emerged from the Great Spring Sickness. And we really cannot understate the apocalyptic nature of this plague.
It is catastrophic.
It swept across the continent, killing tens of thousands.
And didn't it hit the capital especially hard?
Oh, King's Landing was a nightmare. The dead piled up so fast in the streets that the Hand of the King actually had to use a pyromancer's wildfire to burn the corpses.
Which is just an insane visual.
Lighting up the night sky with green flames. I mean, it was apocalyptic.
Wow.
And the plague wiped out commoners and nobility alike, including the reigning monarch, King Daeron II, and his immediate heirs.
So the leadership is just gone.
Entirely. The realm is politically fractured, traumatized, and severely depopulated.
And as if a green-lit sky of burning corpses wasn't enough, the moment the sickness finally begins to fade, the gods hit Westeros with a brutal, unrelenting summer drought.
Just zero relief.
None. The source paints this agonizing sensory picture. We aren't just talking about a dry spell here.
Right.
We're talking about sun-baked, cracked earth that ruins the very foundations of the agricultural economy. Like, crops are quite literally turning to dust.
And rivers are reducing to trenches of cracked mud.
Exactly. It's a suffocating, oppressive heat that drives men to madness.
It's a profound existential threat. I mean, in a feudal agrarian society, a drought of this magnitude isn't just an inconvenience.
Right.
It is a slow death. The minor lords and the small folk, they are staring starvation right in the face.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
And it is within this agonizing heat, in the withered landscape of the Northern Reach, that we find our point of view figures.
Right, Ser Duncan the Tall.
Yes, a massive hedge knight known as Dunk, and his squire, Egg.
Who is secretly a prince of the royal blood traveling in disguise, which is a whole other layer.
It is, but currently they are employed by a sad, impoverished old knight named Ser Eustace Osgrey.
Sir Eustace of Standfast.
Yeah.
The patriarch of the House of the Cheeky Lion.
That's the one.
Let's look at the juxtaposition the sources give us here, because it's wild. The Osgreys were once a vastly powerful house.
Huge. They were the marshals of the North March.
Right, they held enormous tracts of land. But now
it's a very different story.
Sir Eustace rules from a pathetic, crumbling watchtower. He's essentially a glorified squatter on a tiny fraction of his ancestral lands.
Just a shadow of what his family used to be.
Yeah. And he wakes up every single morning, steps out of his rotting tower and looks across the horizon at his magnificent ancestral castle, Coldmoat.
Which he doesn't own anymore.
Right, a castle that is now occupied by his mortal rivals, House Webber.
Bearing the sigil of the spotted spider.
Which is just so evocative.
The visual of that heraldry alone tells a story, you know? The withered, dying Checky lion staring up at the gleaming, venomous spotted spider.
It's a geographical and psychological powder keg.
Absolutely. And the spark that finally ignites it, well, it's water.
Right, because Dunk and Egg wake up to discover that the local stream, the Checky water, has completely dried up overnight.
And this stream is literally the only lifeline keeping Sir Eustace's pathetic crops alive.
But it wasn't the drought that stopped the water.
Right, no, it wasn't. Dunk rides upstream and discovers that the peasants of Coldmoat have constructed a massive dam.
Wow.
They are deliberately hoarding the water for the Red Widow.
Which brings up a critical point about military and economic strategy.
Yeah.
I mean, in a feudal society currently suffering a drought, stealing a river isn't just some petty border insult.
Not at all.
It is an act of total economic warfare. It is a death sentence designed to starve House Osgrey off the map entirely.
It really is.
But here is where I have to strongly question Sir Eustace's response.
Oh, yeah. His response is baffling.
Logically, you're an old man in a crumbling tower. Your militia consists of a handful of half-starved villagers.
Right.
And you are facing a massive, heavily fortified castle garrison at Coldmoat. I mean, the absolute only play here is diplomacy.
You'd think so.
You send a raven, you ride to the gates under a peace banner,
Yeah.
you swallow your pride, and you ask for a parley.
That is the logical play, yes. But Sir Eustace doesn't do that.
No, he doesn't.
Because the psychology of a dying noble house fundamentally rejects logic when pride is on the line.
Exactly. Instead of diplomacy, Eustace relies on his other sworn sword.
Sir Bennis.
Yes, Sir Bennis of the Brown Shield, who is just a foul-tempered, absolute brute of a hedge knight.
A truly nasty piece of work.
Bennis rides up to the dam, finds the Webber peasants building it, and just brutally slices open one of their faces.
Over a water dispute.
He mutilates a peasant. It's absolute madness.
I was reading this and thinking, this is like someone stealing your last canteen in the desert, and your response is to stab their armed guard.
Yeah, it's just pure, blinding, suicidal escalation.
If Bennis is a seasoned knight, why would he provoke a vastly superior force like that?
Because Bennis operates on cruelty, and Eustace operates on delusion.
Delusion is the perfect word for it.
Think about Sir Eustace's internal reality. He is a man who has nothing left but the phantom memory of his family's former glory.
Right, he's living in the past. Exactly. His daily reality is dirt, sweat, and impending starvation. But in his own mind, he is still the great lord of the Checky lion.
So admitting weakness is just off the table.
Completely. To go begging to Coldmoat for water would destroy the fragile psychological illusion he uses to survive.
But there is a darker, much more specific layer to this pride, right?
Yep.
Embedded in the patriarchal structures of Westeros.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I have a hypothesis on this. It's not just that he's admitting weakness to a rival house.
Go on.
It's that he would be admitting weakness and begging for his life from a woman.
Yes.
In his mind, bowing to a 25-year-old female lord is an affront to his ancient martial masculinity.
You've hit the exact nerve of the issue.
Right.
In the intensely patriarchal society of Westeros, a lord's worth is tied to his martial strength and his dominance over his domain.
Which he doesn't really have anymore.
Right. But for a man of ancient lineage like Eustace to beg Lady Rohanne Webber for survival, that is a fate worse than starvation. He would literally rather his people die standing than live kneeling to the Red Widow.
Which is so tragically selfish. Because it's not just his life on the line.
No, it's his people.
Eustace's pride demands a blood price from peasants who don't even understand the feud.
Right, because after Bennis mutilates the peasant, what does Eustace do?
He orders Dunk to take these pathetic, slack-jawed villagers' men armed with literal pitchforks, hoes, and fire-ardent sticks.
Which is just absurd.
And train them to fight the widow's heavily armed professional garrison.
It's a joke.
Bennis's petty violence leaves Eustace with an impending war he cannot possibly win. It is going to be a slaughter.
An absolute unmitigated slaughter. And Dunk, who is observing all of this, he knows it.
Dunk is such a great character here.
He is a fascinating figure because he operates strictly on the idealized moral code of knighthood.
Even if his actual knighthood is historically ambiguous.
Exactly, but he believes in the ideal. He cannot stand by and watch innocent peasants be butchered for an old man's vanity.
So Dunk is forced to take a desperate step.
He is.
He volunteers to ride to Coldmoat alone,
Yeah.
to parley with the murderous witch herself. He is walking straight into the spider's web to try and buy peace.
It's incredibly brave.
It is. And I want to pause here to really examine the absolute suffocating dread Dunk is feeling on that ride.
Oh, he must have been terrifying.
Because let's look at the myth of the monstrous witch that the sources provide.
Yeah.
Dunk fully expects to meet a monster.
He does, and
Oh.
we have to analyze how that monster was constructed.
Right.
Dunk is marching toward a woman who has survived 4 husbands.
Right.
And the source explicitly details the terrifying mythology the realm has built around her.
The rumors are wild.
They really are. The small folk claim she has a literal spider's heart.
Creepy.
They whisper that she sold her soul to dark, unnamed gods. They believe she murders her lords in their marriage beds to usurp their power, their lands, and their wealth.
So Dunk literally expects to find a grotesque, warty hag brewing dark poisons in a dungeon.
Exactly.
I look at these rumors, and it perfectly highlights the anatomy of a historical smear campaign.
Oh, it's a textbook example.
I want to ask you about the mechanics of this, because it feels incredibly systematic.
It is.
In an unforgiving, male-dominated world like Westeros, a woman surviving one husband is considered a terrible tragedy. She is reduced to an object of pity.
Right.
But a woman surviving 4 husbands, that completely breaks the societal algorithm, doesn't it?
It shatters it entirely. The maesters, the lords, the men who write the histories and hold the power, they just cannot process it.
Yeah.
They cannot fathom a woman accumulating wealth and land through independent survival.
Because if a man does it.
Right. If a male lord outlives 4 wives because they died in childbirth or of winter fevers, he is just a lord looking for his 5th wife to secure an heir.
It is completely normalized.
Entirely. But if a woman outlives 4 husbands, the patriarchal structure cannot attribute it to chance or, poor medieval medicine.
They need a villain.
Yes. They must attribute it to insidious treachery. Pity morphs into suspicion, and suspicion crystallizes into a monstrous myth.
She cannot be unlucky. She must be a Black Widow who feeds on men.
Exact.
I want you, the listener, to really put yourself in Dunk's rusted, oversized armor for a moment.
Oh, what a visual.
It's sweltering hot. You are riding alone toward a massive, imposing stone fortress.
Heart pounding.
Every single thing you have been told by the people you trust is that the woman inside bathes in blood and dark magic.
Yeah.
You are bracing yourself for a horror story. And it makes me wonder, looking at the historical text, how much of this terrifying mythology is just organic, small folk gossip-like peasants trying to make sense of a statistical anomaly, and how much is intentionally crafted propaganda by rival lords who just want an excuse to steal her lands.
What's fascinating here is that the rumors serve a highly functional dual purpose.
That's so.
On the one hand, they absolutely justify the hatred and aggression of men like Sir Eustace. It allows them to paint their petty land grabs and ancient feuds as a righteous crusade against a dark witch.
Right, it sanitizes their greed.
Precisely. But as we analyze Rohanne's position later, we'll see that these exact same rumors create a bizarre, deeply necessary shield for the widow herself.
That is so interesting, but Dunk doesn't know any of that yet.
No, he's totally in the dark.
He rides through the heavy iron gates of Coldmoat, fully expecting to cross the threshold into hell.
He's bracing for a dark, suffocating throne room, the smell of sulfur, the sinister whispers of dark magic.
But what he actually finds, it's a brilliant subversion of the dark fantasy trope.
It really is.
It completely shatters every dark legend the realm has built around her.
The contrast is deliberately jarring. Dunk doesn't walk into a dungeon. He walks into a sunlit courtyard.
A total shift in tone.
Yeah. And instead of a warty, cackling hag, he meets Lady Rohanne Webber.
And she is not what he expected.
Not at all. She is 25 years old. She is petite. She is incredibly witty. Her face is dusted with freckles. She has a thick braid of bright red hair.
And she's actively wielding a longbow.
Right. Practicing at the targets. She is vibrant, sharp-tongued, and immediately commands the space not through fear, but through sheer, overwhelming competence.
I love the image of the longbow. It's such a dynamic, active introduction.
It really is.
She's not lurking in shadows. She's standing in the blinding summer sun, perfecting her archery. Dunk experiences absolute whiplash.
He's speechless.
The disconnect between the demonic Red Widow and this stunning, sarcastic 25-year-old forces Dunk to completely reevaluate the lore right on the spot.
And it's not just her appearance that changes his mind.
Right, there's a conversation.
Dunk speaks with the castle septon.
The religious figure of the seven.
Exactly. Who would theoretically be the most violently opposed to dark magic and witchcraft?
You'd think he'd be the one leading the witch hunt.
But the Septon provides the grounded historical truth. He strips away the myth entirely.
What does he say?
He tells Dunk that Rohanne didn't poison anyone. There are no dark gods. There is no spider's heart. There is only a terrifying sequence of tragic bad luck.
Let's walk through the mechanics of these deaths, because it shows how fiercely this society works to turn tragedy into an indictment of female malice.
Okay, let's do it. Her first husband, he was a squire who died as a casualty of battle when Rohanne was merely a child.
So she wasn't even old enough to be a wife in anything but name.
Exactly.
A tragedy of war, completely out of her hands. Okay, husband number 2.
He was an older man who died of a sudden natural sickness, a fever.
Right.
In a world without modern medicine, where people routinely die of minor infections and winter chills, this is incredibly common. Again, entirely mundane.
Mundane, yes.
Yeah.
But husband number 3 is where I was reading the source material, and I actually had to pause.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
Because there is this bizarre, tragic absurdity to it. The realm thinks she's summoning demons to slay her lords, but the source tells us her third husband, Sir Roland Uffring, he literally choked on a chicken bone.
I know.
A chicken bone. That's not dark sorcery. That's not a pact with demonic entities.
So here's a dinner accident.
That's just a desperate need for the Westerosi equivalent of the Heimlich maneuver. It's a farce masquerading as a dark legend.
It is entirely absurd.
And the fourth.
Her fourth husband, who gave her the title of Lady of Coldmoat, perished in the recent plague, the Great Spring Sickness.
Wow.
A plague that, as we established earlier, killed tens of thousands of people across the entire continent. She survived the plague, he did not.
So she isn't a master assassin. She's just arguably the most unluckily married woman in the Reach.
Exactly. And if we look past the dark humor of the chicken bone, we really have to consider the profound psychological toll this would take on a human being.
It must be devastating.
Think about Rohanne's lived experience. By the age of 25, she has buried 4 husbands.
4 funerals.
She has experienced immense grief, instability, and the trauma of constant sudden loss. And instead of receiving sympathy or support,
Right.
she is universally branded a murderer by the entire realm. She is isolated, feared, and hated for tragedies she had absolutely no control over.
Most people would completely break under that crushing weight. They would retreat or surrender their lands just to escape the scrutiny.
Oh, for sure.
But she doesn't. She remains this vibrant, fiercely intelligent archer in a sunlit courtyard.
It's a testament to her strength.
Which brings up a glaring, massive logical inconsistency.
Yeah.
And I need to push back on her strategy here.
Okay, what's the issue?
If she is just an unlucky, innocent 25-year-old woman who wants to be left alone, why does she refuse to tear down the dam?
Oh, right.
Why does she demand a literal blood price for the cut peasant? Why does she lean into the role of the ruthless villain they claim she is?
That's a fair question.
I mean, if you want people to stop calling you a monster, why act like one?
Because she is trapped in a legal and physical snare.
A snare.
To understand her seemingly cruel actions regarding the water, you have to look past the drought and look at the horrifying patriarchal nightmare she is operating within.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because Dunk uncovers that there is a terrifying ticking clock governing every single move she makes.
There is.
Let's talk about the will.
Yes. The will of her late father, Lord Wyman Webber.
Right.
Now, the legal mechanics of Westerosi inheritance usually dictate that a true-born daughter comes before a brother or a cousin.
Right, that's standard.
But Lord Wyman legally circumvented this. His will dictates that Rohanne will be entirely stripped of Coldmoat, her lands, her wealth, and her titles. All of it will be handed over to a male cousin unless she fulfills one specific draconian condition.
Unless she takes a 5th husband before the 2nd anniversary of her father's death.
Exactly.
I mean, think about the absolute betrayal here. Her own father didn't trust her to rule the land she grew up on.
He really did it.
He viewed her merely as a vessel, a temporary placeholder to pass the castle on to another man. He codified in law that her only value to the realm is matrimonial.
It is the ultimate posthumous control. And the terrifying part of the mechanics here is the timeline.
The ticking clock.
She has exactly 1 month left before the 2nd anniversary. The clock is screaming at her.
1 month? That's nothing.
But it's not just a legal trap on parchment. It is an immediate physical threat.
Right, because of the castellan.
Because her father didn't just leave her with an ultimatum. He appointed a man named Sir Lucas Longinch as her castellan.
Let's analyze Longinch's authority here, because the castellan is essentially the military commander of the castle. He holds the keys, he commands the guards.
Yes.
And the source describes Longinch as this massive, cruel, towering brute of a man. If she is the lady of the castle, why doesn't she just fire him? Why does he have so much leverage?
Because in feudal politics, legal title means nothing if you don't control the men with the swords.
Ah, right. Hard power.
Longinch was appointed by her father, giving him a mandate of legitimacy. The garrison looks to him for military leadership.
And what does he want?
Well, Longinch is absolutely determined to marry Rohanne himself. He wants the castle, and she is the key.
That's terrifying.
He is looming over her every single day, waiting for the clock to run down, fully prepared to force her into a violent, non-consensual marriage the moment her legal standing weakens.
So look at the geopolitical board from her perspective.
It's bleak.
She is completely surrounded by violence. The male cousin is legally waiting for the clock to run out so he can take her home.
Yep.
Longinch is physically looming over her, waiting to force her into bed. Neighboring lords like Eustace are testing her borders.
Everywhere she looks, there's a threat.
If she shows even a millimeter of weakness, these men will consume her entirely.
Which brings us back to your earlier question about the dam and her brilliant, desperate counter strategy.
Okay, lay it out.
Why doesn't she tear down the dam? Because she literally cannot afford to compromise. There is a quote from the source material that perfectly encapsulates her entire worldview, forged in the fires of this misogynistic system.
What's the quote?
She tells Dunk, "Woe to any man who shows his weakness. A woman must needs piss twice as hard if she hopes to rule."
Wow. It's crude, it's visceral, and it is a perfectly accurate assessment of the political mechanics she's dealing with.
It really is.
I want to turn this directly to you, the listener. Think about the strategic reality she faces.
Put yourself in her shoes.
If you are a young, unmarried noblewoman in this world, completely isolated, surrounded by ambitious, violent men actively trying to steal your ancestral home, would you politely try to explain that you aren't a witch?
Probably not.
Or would you actively lean into the rumors of being a murderous, blood-drinking monster just to keep them terrified of you?
It is the most logical, ruthlessly effective survival tactic available to her. She has taken the misogyny of her world and weaponized it.
Yes.
If these men believe she is just a sad, unlucky young widow, they will attack her. They will force her into marriage. They will invade her lands. They will depose her.
They'll smell the blood in the water.
But if they believe she has a spider's heart, if they believe she poisoned 4 hardened lords and feeds their souls to dark gods in the night, they hesitate.
Her monstrous reputation is her absolute best armor.
Exactly.
It is a shield forged from the exact lies they tell to tear her down. Longinch might command the garrison, he might want to force her into marriage, but even a towering brute like him has to pause late at night and think.
What if the rumors are true?
Right. If I force her to marry me,
Yeah.
will I magically choke on a chicken bone next week? Will I catch a sudden fatal fever?
The myth keeps the predators at bay.
It really does. It buys her the critical time she needs to find a loophole in her father's impossible will.
It is absolute political genius. She is playing a rigged game and managing to hold off the wolves by wearing a monster's mask.
But as incredibly smart as that strategy is, there is a piece of the puzzle that still doesn't fit for me.
Okay, what's missing?
Weaponizing the myth explains why she acts tough. It explains why she builds the dam to assert dominance.
Right.
But it doesn't fully explain the specific, intense, burning hatred she has for Sir Eustace Osgrey.
Ah, yes. The personal feud.
Because letting his crops wither to dust, refusing to accept any parley, demanding blood that goes beyond projecting strength, that feels deeply, intimately personal.
Because it is.
Right. And to understand why she would gladly let Sir Eustace's lands burn, we have to look 15 years into the past. We have arrived at the source material's massive, foundational plot twist.
And this twist is a masterclass in recontextualizing historical narrative.
It changes everything.
Because as it turns out, Rohanne ultimately does not care about the Chequy water. She doesn't care about the drought or the dam.
Then what does she care about?
She hates Sir Eustace because of a ghost.
Oh, wow. Let's lay out the lore of this ghost.
Let's do it.
15 years ago, before she was the terrifying Red Widow, before the 4 dead husbands, before the ticking clock of her father's cruel will, Rohanne was just a young girl.
Just a normal teenager, really.
And she was deeply, truly in love with Sir Eustace's youngest son, Adam Osgrey.
Adam Osgrey. He served as a page and then a squire at Coldmoat. They grew up together in the halls of her castle.
So they were childhood sweethearts.
Yes, and the text implies quite heavily that they were meant to be together. It was a genuine, innocent love, utterly untainted by the brutal politics that would later define and ruin her life.
But then, Sir Eustace dragged his sons away from Coldmoat.
He did.
He pulled them into a massive civil war, and Adam Osgrey died in the mud thousands of miles from home.
Let's unpack the emotional devastation of this reveal because it changes everything about her motivations.
It really reframes the whole conflict.
This entire time, Dunk and the historical record, honestly, has framed this as a petty border dispute over a drying river. But it's not.
Yeah.
It is a story of profound, festering, unresolved grief. Rohanne blames Sir Eustace for destroying the only chance at a happy, normal life she ever had.
That makes so much sense.
In her eyes, Eustace's toxic pride got the boy she loved slaughtered, which subsequently forced her into the nightmare cycle of 4 political marriages, the rumors, the isolation, and the fear.
Eustace isn't just an annoying neighbor stealing water. He's the architect of her lifelong misery.
Exactly.
He's the reason she has to wear the monster's mask in the first place.
Yes.
And so when Dunk stands in her great hall, completely unaware of this intimate history, and begs for mercy, claiming that the stream legally, historically belongs to House Osgrey, Rohanne has finally had enough of the lies. She drops the absolute bombshell of this deep dive.
She produces a royal decree.
A piece of paper changes the whole game.
A physical document bearing the wax seal of the king on the Iron Throne. And she reveals to Dunk that the stream doesn't belong to Sir Eustace.
Wait, really?
In fact, it hasn't belonged to him for 15 years.
Why not?
Because during that massive civil war that tore the realm apart, Sir Eustace Osgrey didn't fight for the king.
He fought for the Black Dragon, Demon Blackfire, the great rebel.
Yes, he did.
Now, I want to make sure we explain the mechanics of this treason, because to understand the gravity of this, you have to understand the Blackfire Rebellion.
Exactly. The Blackfire Rebellion was the most devastating civil war in recent Westerosi memory.
Who was Demon Blackfire?
Demon Blackfire was the legitimized bastard brother of the king. He was a warrior of mythical proportions, wielding the Valyrian steel sword of kings.
So a very serious threat to the throne.
Oh, massive. He rebelled against King Daeron II, claiming the throne for himself. The realm literally split in 2.
Just tore itself apart.
It wasn't just a political disagreement, it was a cultural and martial bloodbath. The climax of this war was the Battle of the Redgrass Field, a slaughter so horrific it literally stained the grass red.
And this is where Adam Osgrey died.
This is where Adam died.
And backing the loser in a feudal civil war has catastrophic legal consequences.
You lose everything.
When Demon Blackfire was killed and the rebellion crushed, the crown systematically dismantled the wealth and power of the losing houses.
Which means Sir Eustace is a traitor.
Right.
A pardoned traitor because he bent the knee after the war, but a traitor nonetheless.
So his lands.
The crown stripped his family of their lands, their rights, and specifically their water rights to the Chequy Stream, and gave them to the Webbers as punishment.
When I was going through the source material, this revelation genuinely rewired how I viewed the entire first half of the story.
It's a huge shock.
Think about it. The kindly, nostalgic, sad old knight who Dunk swore his life to, the man we've been pitying as a victim of a cruel wish, is actually a treasonous liar who dragged his own children to their deaths in a failed rebellion.
It's an incredible subversion.
It's like finding out your sweet, fragile grandfather, who constantly complains about the neighbor stealing his newspaper, is actually a pardoned war criminal who legally forfeited his house to the neighbors decades ago as reparations.
That is exactly what it's like. It is a staggering revelation that forces a complete psychological reevaluation of Sir Eustace.
He's not the hero of his own story at all.
His pride isn't the noble, tragic dignity of an ancient house fallen on hard times due to bad luck.
No.
It is the bitter, toxic delusion of a man who backed a wrong dragon, got his own sons killed, and absolutely refuses to accept the legal and moral consequences of his own actions.
He has been lying to himself for 15 years.
And he explicitly lied to Dunk.
He let Dunk believe he was defending an ancient rightful claim.
He set him up.
He let Bennis, his sworn sword, mutilate a peasant over water he knew he didn't legally own.
Yep.
He was perfectly willing to let those half-starved villagers with pitchforks march to their deaths against Coldmoat to defend the lie.
And this bombshell leaves Dunk completely shattered.
As it should.
Dunk is a man defined by his strict adherence to the moral ideals of knighthood. His entire identity is wrapped up in his honor, and his honor binds him to his lord.
Right.
He swore an oath to serve and protect Sir Eustace. But his lord is a fraud. The cause is a fabrication.
And just as Dunk is grappling with this crushing reality, the simmering conflict between these two houses finally escapes the realm of legal decrees and explodes into physical violence.
Literally.
The sky catches fire.
We move into the dead of night. Dunk returns to Standfast, reeling from the truth of Eustace's treason, only to find that Sir Eustace's ancestral forest Watts Wood has gone up in flames.
The entire horizon is burning.
Now, Eustace immediately blames the Red Widow. He assumes she sent her men to burn his lands in retaliation for the mutilated peasant, or perhaps because Dunk failed to secure a peace.
Which, given everything we know, she might have done right.
Well, Rohanne, of course, denies it, but at this point, the truth of who lit the match almost doesn't matter.
Right, the damage is done.
The blood debt has reached a boiling point. The tension can no longer be contained by diplomacy or dams or royal decrees.
It's war.
Lady Rohanne, acting as the offended lord, demands a trial by combat to settle the feud once and for all.
Let's analyze the mechanics of a trial by combat in Westeros because it's so fascinating.
Oh, it is. It is a legal and religious institution where the gods are believed to favor the righteous party.
Right.
If Eustace refuses, he is legally admitting guilt to the crimes Rohanne accuses him of, which means execution.
So he has to fight.
But if he fights, he will die, because he is an old, frail man. So the burden falls on his champion.
It falls on Dunk.
It falls on Dunk.
Which puts Dunk in an impossible, horrifying position. And I have to throw a flag on the play here.
Okay, throw it.
I want to argue strongly against Dunk's choice here. Why would a true knight like Dunk even consider fighting for Eustace at this point?
It's complicated.
Is it? An oath you swear to a lord should be null and void if that lord lied to you to secure the oath.
Well,
Eustace is a traitor. He stole water. He provoked the attack. Dunk should walk away. Let the old man face the music of his own terrible decisions. Why risk your life for a lie?
from a modern, objective standpoint, you were entirely correct.
Thank you.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the psychological reality of Westeros, Dunk's dilemma represents the core tragedy of knighthood in this dark fantasy world.
Okay, explain that.
The songs and the romantic stories tell you that knights are righteous heroes who defend the weak and uphold the objective truth.
Shining armor, rescuing maidens, all that.
Exactly. But the grim reality of Westerosi feudalism is that an oath is an iron chain. An oath binds you to a lord, regardless of whether that lord is just or cruel or a delusional liar.
So it's about the system, not the individual justice.
Knighthood, in practice, constantly forces fundamentally good men to defend terrible lies to preserve the social order.
So you're saying if Dunk walks away, he breaks his vow, which proves to the world and to himself that his word is worthless.
Precisely.
It shatters his own internal identity as a true knight.
Yes. If he abandons his lord on the eve of battle, he is no better than an oath-breaker. But if he fights, he is drawing his sword for a petty, treasonous old man who stole water he didn't own.
Wow.
It is a lose-lose scenario dictated by the rigid chains of chivalry.
And he isn't just fighting an anonymous guardsman either.
No, he is not.
He is stepping up to fight Sir Lucas Longedge,
The Castellan.
the towering, brutal Castellan who wants to force Rohanne into marriage. Dunk is facing the very real possibility of dying for a cause he fundamentally knows is unjust, against a man who embodies the worst patriarchal violence of this society.
The source material leaves us with this incredibly evocative cinematic image of the impending duel. The sensory details are just overwhelming.
That's the scene for us.
I want you to picture the camera panning through the burning, blackened trees of Watts Wood. The air is thick with choking smoke and floating ash.
So atmospheric.
And through the fiery haze, you see the towering silhouette of Dunk, standing ankle-deep in the rushing, freezing cold water of the stream.
The Chequy water.
He draws his massive long-sword. You hear the deafening roar of the river, the violent crackle of the forest fire, and then the sharp, metallic clash of steel as Longedge attacks.
It's epic, it's visceral, and it's profoundly tragic.
It really is.
Because Dunk might drown in that freezing stream, bleeding out for a lie, while the woman he went to save, the woman who just wanted to be left alone, is forced to watch men use violence to decide her fate, yet again.
It is a masterful distillation of everything this lore is about.
Seriously.
There are no clean, shining heroes in the year 211 AC. There are only flawed, traumatized people trying to survive the crushing historical and legal structures built to destroy them.
So as we pull back from the flames and the rushing water, we have to look at the massive, twisted journey we've just taken through the archives.
We covered a lot of ground today.
We really did. We started this deep dive, chasing the myth of a monstrous, blood-drinking witch.
And what did we find?
We found a brilliant, witty 25-year-old archer with terrible luck. We uncovered a tangled web of pardoned treason, unresolved grief, and a ticking legal clock designed to strip a woman of her autonomy.
Lady Rohanne Webber proves that in the brutal, unforgiving Game of Thrones, the most dangerous weapon a woman can wield isn't poison or dark magic. It is the very monstrous reputation that men invent to control her.
That is such a powerful takeaway.
She took the misogyny, the fear, and the paranoia of the maesters and the lords, and she forged it into an impenetrable suit of armor. She's not a villain.
Not at all.
She is a brilliant, deeply tragic survivor playing a rigged game with absolute tactical mastery.
So what does this all mean for us, the lore keepers? It means that history is always written by the victors and almost exclusively by the men in power.
Always.
But the truth, the real beating heart of history, it is usually hidden in the muddy, tragic details of human grief, desperation, and the sheer undeniable will to survive.
Beautifully said.
The Red Widow didn't want to be a monster. She just wanted to keep her home, and she wanted the autonomy that the world swore she couldn't have.
Exactly.
If you want to survive the coming winter and uncover more long-lost secrets of Westeros, make sure to hit that subscribe button, like the video, and share it with your fellow lords and ladies. Our journey through the tales of Dunk and Egg is about to catch fire.
But before we close the restricted archives for today, I want to leave you with one final, lingering thought to dissect.
Oh, lay it on us.
We've analyzed how Rohanne actively used the monstrous myth to survive her enemies. But this raises an important question.
Right.
If the only way to survive a world built to crush you is to become the exact nightmare they fear, does it ultimately matter if you are innocent on the inside?
Oh, wow.
In the cold eyes of history, if you wear the monster's mask long enough to survive, do you eventually become indistinguishable from the monster itself?
A chilling thought to ponder as we step back out into the daylight. Until next time, keep digging into the dark.